Now, there are different types of probability sampling based on different requirements. Simple random sampling, systematic random sampling, stratified random sampling, and finally, cluster random sampling. Let us describe each one of these briefly. First up is simple random sampling. This is a type of sampling in which the researcher randomly selects a subset of participants from a population. Each individual has an equal chance of being selected. Next is systematic random sampling. It is a probability sampling method in which a random sample is selected from the population with a fixed periodic interval. The periodic interval, which is also known as the sampling interval, is calculated by dividing the population size by the desired sample size. Third is stratified random sampling. It involves the division of a population into smaller subgroups known as strata. In stratified random sampling or stratification, the strata are formed based on members' shared attributes or characteristics, such as income or educational attainment. And finally, we have cluster random sampling. In this method, you need to divide the population into clusters, such as districts or schools, and then randomly select some of these clusters as your sample. The clusters should ideally each be mini representations of the population as a whole. Let us now discuss non-probability sampling. There are 4 kinds. Convenience sampling, which includes the individuals who happen to be most accessible to the researcher. Second is voluntary response sampling. Here, instead of the researcher choosing participants and directly contacting them, people volunteer themselves. Then we have purposive sampling, which involves the researcher using their expertise to select a sample that is most useful to the purposes of the research. And finally, we have snowball sampling. If the population is hard to access, snowball sampling can be used to recruit participants via other participants. The number of people you have to access to snowballs as you get in contact with more people. To select a sample for monitoring and evaluation, it is crucial to understand each step in the process, which is what we will do in this section. First, you must define the purpose of monitoring, which basically means to determine the specific objectives of the monitoring evaluation. Then you must identify the key metrics or indicators that are relevant to the monitoring evaluation. These may include performance measures, quality standards, or other relevant criteria that align with the objectives of the monitoring. After identifying the indicators, you move on to determining the sample size. For this, consider the appropriate sample size based on statistical principles. A larger sample size generally provides more reliable results, but it may also require more resources and time. Select a sample size that is statistically significant and appropriate for the level of accuracy desired. Next step is to clearly define the boundaries and characteristics of the sampling frame to ensure that the sample is representative. After determining the sample size, it is crucial to choose a sampling method that is appropriate for your specific monitoring evaluation objectives and sampling frame. Although you have decided on the sampling method and size, you have to be mindful of potential biases that may affect the sample selection process. Then, you must document the sample selection process. Keep detailed records of the sample selection process, including the sampling method used, the sample size, and any considerations or adjustments made. Finally, you must conduct the monitoring evaluation. Once the sample has been selected, collect and analyze the data according to the defined metrics and objectives of the exercise.